how does the focus on sexually transmitted disease develop?
What fell to my lot as I came back to Winnipeg was both patients in hospital with sexually transmitted infections and a clinic for sexually transmitted infections that was run by the city but based at what was in the Winnipeg General. So I started going to the clinic and I started seeing patients. I'd done this in Seattle as well, so I had skills in this area, and that really was, and I started writing some manuscripts on sexually transmitted infections. And again, on the long weekend, July 1st long weekend in 1975, by this time I've recruited a colleague to join me. An American Harvard grad came to Winnipeg, and which again is another story, but you may or may not have time for it.
We will have time
okay.
for it.
He joined me, and on that long weekend I got called in twice because of patients, men presenting with swellings in their groin that were incised and that was full of pus. And that was the beginnings of what was an outbreak of Chancroid, a disease that I'd never seen. And during these years, we had got used to calling Atlanta whenever we had problems. And I mean, it was a marvel. It was, for about 8 or 9 years, we'd call Atlanta, and within days they'd have a team in Winnipeg and working with us on whatever we called them about. And it was just, I mean, it was really quite amazing that they were permitted to do this. The rules hadn't risen yet. People in Ottawa weren't interested in flying out to Winnipeg. And so we had all these outbreaks that made infectious disease exciting for the house staff, for us. And it was because of my links, which I'd established in Seattle with friends at Atlanta. And so I think they came up 9 times over 8 years for things that, and every time we'd end up with 1 to 3 manuscripts that we do with them about these outbreaks of things in Winnipeg or in Manitoba. So that was a very, I mean, from 68 when I arrived back here with wonderful residents, and then after 75, wonderful colleagues. Life was just incredible, invigorating. I must say I didn't spend enough time at home, but Myrna still loved me and supported me by doing a good job of looking after the home. Yeah, did I go off topic there?
No. But I'm wondering if there's more to be said about particularly the Chancroid epidemic of 75.
Yes, I mean, what happened, the public health doctor was wonderful, John Scatliff, and he and I just sat down with my fellow at the time, and by this time I had 2 or 3 fellows who were, and I had a fellow who was willing to put a lot of his energy into addressing this illness that was increasingly widespread. The people came up from Atlanta initially had said on the phone, this has to be just a different kind of herpes. Are you sure it's not herpes? And I said, well, we can't grow any herpes viruses, and I've seen lots of herpes, and this doesn't look like herpes to me. I think it's Chancroid. And they said, well, we haven't really seen much Chancroid in North America for a number of years, and we don't know anything about it, but so we'll come up and have a look at it. And he came, and the chap who came up, just again, I have these blocks for names, but I'll think of it. Anyway, he was, I remember showing him 2 or 3 cases. He says, I know this isn't herpes and must be Chancroid, even though I've never seen a case. So we decided that to figure out what the epidemiology was, and it was sex workers on Main Street. Almost every man had sex, and it was all uncircumcised men, and we said, well, let's put some resources into finding these sex workers, and we found one that had been admitted to a hospital of as Behçet's disease, which is quite a rare ulcerating disease of the genitalia, and that was what they called her, and what she had was chancroid. And she'd been named by quite a few of the men as who they'd had sex with. But we found about a dozen sex workers who had chancroid, and they were infecting all these men. And so when the epidemic ended, I think we had about 200 cases. And as soon as we got these sex workers treated and cured, the epidemic disappeared. It took us a year to figure this out, but it quickly ended the epidemic. And we wrote up, I think, 6 manuscripts on it and became the world experts on chancroid.